We're going to look at the organization of the human body. It includes cavities, membranes, regions, quadrants. We will be looking at directional terms in class. The body can be divided into two portions: the appendicular portion, which is your arms and legs, and the axial portion, which is your head, your neck, and your trunk. The axial portion you see here is separated into the dorsal and ventral cavity. The dorsal fin on the shark is what you look for popping out of the water, so our dorsal portion of our body is the back half of the body. This is the ventral portion is subdivided into different cavities here, and we will be concerned in this portion with organs, and we will call organs viscera. The dorsal cavity is divided into the cranial cavity and the vertebral canal, and the ventral cavity is divided into the thoracic cavity, which is your chest, and that is separated from the lower cavity, the abdominal pelvic cavity, by the diaphragm, a thin sheet of muscle that aids us in breathing. The abdominal pelvic cavity is subdivided into the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity. There are smaller cavities in the head, the oral cavities or mouth, nasal cavities or nose, orbital cavities or eyes, and the middle ear cavities. You'll also see sinuses on this diagram here. Sinuses are openings in the bone that are filled with air and lined with mucous membrane, and the sinuses give us trouble if we have allergies. I want to talk a little bit about the membranes. Our body has two different types of membrane systems, and this membrane system is called the serous membrane system. The serous membrane system consists of two membranes, and between the two membranes will be a fluid called serous fluid that will lubricate the membrane so it prevents friction. These serous membranes line body cavities that do not open to the outside. So we'll start with the thoracic cavity or the chest cavity. You can see here that the thoracic cavity is separated from the right and left half by an area called the mediastinum. The pleura are the membranes of the thoracic cavity, and the membrane that lines the cavity is called the parietal pleura, and the membrane that covers the lungs is called the visceral pleura. The heart has a membrane system. These membranes are called the pericardial membranes. The outer sac is called the parietal pericardium, and the pericardium that covers the heart itself is the visceral pericardium. The peritoneal membranes line the abdominal cavity. The membrane that lines the abdominal cavity is the parietal peritoneum, and the membrane that covers the organs of the abdominal cavity is the visceral peritoneum. So again, we have the pleura, the pericardium, and the peritoneum, and in each one of those systems we have the parietal and the visceral. The body can be separated into sections, and if you were to cut your body right down the center into right and left sections, that would be a sagittal section. Directly in the middle would be mid-sagittal. If you were to cross your body if you were to cut your body top and bottom, you would have a transverse section. And if you were to divide your body from front to back, you would have a coronal section. Here are some terms you probably don't know: superior and inferior, anterior and posterior. We'll get to those terms later. The abdominal area can be divided into 9 regions and 4 quadrants, and we have to learn these terms. The important thing about these terms is that the term refers to the patient's body, not the doctor's body. So in the diagram on the left, you can see the right hypochondriac region is the patient's right-hand side. then the epigastric region, and the left hypochondriac region. Right lumbar, umbilical, left lumbar. Right iliac, hypogastric, left iliac. In quadrants, it's the same thing. The right upper quadrant is on the patient's right side, so you have right upper quadrant and right lower quadrant, left upper quadrant and left lower quadrant.